Welcome and thank you for joining me for yet another episode of Book Talk. Okay, part two. The June of 2011. June of 2011. That was the big month. I was close to my 2 year anniversary of the publishing of my first published book called Why Volunteers Get All the Breaks. I had another manuscript called Big City Railroad that was not even in the vicinity of finished, and I just did not know what to do with myself. In May of 2011, the Smallville series, the live action TV series where we got to see young Clark Kent, the 10 seasons of young Clark Kent going from freshman in high school to the Man of Steel. We got to see that series ended in May of 2011. The final episode was in May of 2011, and we finally got to see our Clark Kent. We got to see Tom Welling's Clark Kent, our Clark Kent, fly for the first time. And boy, was that an exciting episode. But that kind of you lit a fire under me. Say, hey, do I want to create a superhero? And that brings us to June of 2011, because June of 2011 is when I finally sat down and started thinking about what kind of superhero I wanted. I pictured in my head, I didn't know exactly who I wanted the superhero to be, but I pictured a man who stood about 6 feet tall, was extremely muscular, and I don't know why, but for some reason I pictured him being bald, completely bald, and I'm not 100% sure why I did. But that's just the way I pictured him. And as far as how he dressed, well, I got a little confession to make. When I first pictured him in my head, he was pretty much Stone Cold Steve Austin with superpowers. That's how I pictured him dressed. I pictured him dressed like Stone Cold Steve Austin. If you can imagine Stone Cold Steve Austin with superpowers, that's pretty much how I pictured this guy when I first thought of him in June of 2011. Well, and then I started writing down a list of his strengths and weaknesses, and then I came up with a list of, I think, about 10 or 11 strengths and only about one or two weaknesses. So I was a long way away from creating this guy. And you know what? As June of 2011 passed on to July of 2011, that's when I realized, you know what? I just didn't really know what exactly I wanted to do. I mean, I did know that I wanted to create a comic book series, but the problem is, I didn't know any artists personally who were as passionate about creating this series as I was. And what I needed somebody who was committed to the drawing as I was to the writing. And because I did not know any such person, I decided that I had to stick with the medium that I was familiar with, and that was book publishing. So that's when this new superhero series that was about to be born became a book series rather than a comic book series. Now, another thing about the July of 2011. In July of 2011, I realized that this guy that I had created, well, no, I didn't really picture him being a solo character. For some reason, in July of 2011, I realized that what I really wanted was a team of superheroes. I wanted I just couldn't figure out what again, this is the early stage. This is the early stages. This is the stage. This is the early brainstorming stage. This is when you don't really know what you want to do with yourself or your piece. So what I did is I wrote down some names, and another thing. Actually, before I get to the names, there's one other thing I need to mention. Now, in July of 2011, I realized that there had been a lot of comic books, TV series, movies, and all kinds of stuff created for superheroes. So what I realized I needed to do is I needed to find a focus that was different than most others. And you know what? The focus I ended up coming up with is, well, let's go religious. I decided to go religious. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why. I will say that I was not a religious person at the time. I had walked away from the religion I was raised in many years before then. But I was still reading the Bible a lot because, I don't think you really have to, I don't really think you have to really believe in the religion to read the Bible. I mean, because the Bible has a lot of exciting adventure stories if you open your mind to them. But anyway, enough with that. I had I decided to go the religious route, and so I wrote down a list of names. I wrote down some names that, were from the Bible because I was going the religious angle. I remember I wrote down the names Michael, Mary, Philip, Thomas, Simeon, and then I stopped because I said, wait, okay. Now I definitely know I want. I didn't know how many of these superheroes I wanted. All I did know is that I wanted at least an equal amount of males as females as males. So I decided, well, since I came up with all these male names and I only came up with one female name, well then why don't I just let the other female name be not from the Bible? So the names I ended up selecting is I selected Michael, Simeon, Mary, and then the name that was not from the Bible that I thought of. I chose the first name that came to my head. For some reason, the first name that came to my head was Layla. So that's what the other female superhero was named. Now, after I selected Michael, Simeon, Mary, and Layla, I went back to Mary again. I said, Mary. Okay, blame this on my Catholic upbringing if you want to, but Mary sounded too motherly to me. I could not see her as a badass superhero, so I changed Mary's name to Maria. So her name was no longer Mary; it was Maria. So it was Michael, Maria, Layla, and Simeon. Okay, so now I had the name for these foursome. Now we have to figure out what do I want to call this band of superheroes. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, that actually reminds me. Going back to the big muscular guy that I came up with 1 month earlier in June of 2011, I forgot to tell you the name I came up with. Um, um, I picture him being extremely muscular and looking kind of roided out. So the first word that came to my head was steroids, and then roid, roid, and that's what I called him, roid. Okay, so going back forward to July of 2011, what did I end up calling this band of superheroes? Well, that I'm going to save for the next episode. In the next episode, you're going to hear the name that I came up with for these four superheroes. And boy, oh boy, I still cringe to this day when I think about that name I came up with. So please join me soon for the next episode and get that name and be prepared to cringe just like I have many, many times. Okay. Oh, click the link. Yeah, click the link to one of my books below. You can get the links to all my books through that book's website. And remember, all the Night Crusaders series books are are do have a free chapter right there on the site where you can see, where you can read before you decide whether or not you want to buy it. Thank you very much for joining me. Join me again soon.